Today, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive, obviously, into what's happening in the Democratic Party, how this may apply to the crypto and blockchain industries, and really dive deep on some of not only the issues, but what are the strategies being used to really kind of go forward from here. It's going to be a good one. I think you guys don't want to miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me is the founder and CEO of the Digital Chamber, Ms. Perianne. Great to have you on the show.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. We've had a couple of your colleagues on before, so awesome to have you on. I want to kind of start, Perianne, with a couple of things. Obviously, we had the roundtable that occurred yesterday. I don't know if it was at the White House, but we were looking at the room that it was in. But it appears that there were White House representatives there for the attendees. This, of course, was a list of the people that were there. Obviously, Rep. Khanna was one kind of leading it, along with Mark Cuban, Anita Dunn, who is the Biden senior advisor, et cetera. What has been the feedback that you've heard from DC on how that roundtable went?
Yeah, this was an interesting conversation. You saw from that list who was there. It was a lot of senior executives from the cryptocurrency space, and it was primarily lifelong Democrats and a lot of big donors to the Democratic Party who also work in the cryptocurrency space. So there was only one person from the White House that attended, which was Anita Dunn. And according to my sources, so we had a number of our members that were present in the meeting. And according to the debriefs I've done with them thus far, is it was not a lot was advanced. Unfortunately, there are a number of lifelong Democrats that work in the cryptocurrency space who have really pleaded with the White House, with President Biden, with the party to take a more forward-leaning approach to cryptocurrency. Anita Dunn is in a communications role. She serves in a communications capacity for the White House. They did not send any type of policy surrogate or anybody who actually effectuates public policy. So she was really there to just reiterate the party's position, which is we are anti-crypto. And our members really left that meeting feeling like there wasn't even an opportunity or a message for the administration to even reconsider its very hostile position on cryptocurrency. So unfortunately, the anti-crypto army is still alive and well within the Democratic Party as of today, and nothing was pushed forward as a result of the conversations this week.
President Biden is right now. I was just looking at his potential of dropping out of the race. But when you look at that and a crypto roundtable where all of these people spend time and money to come to DC to possibly meet with the administration and essentially get snubbed, is what it sounds like to me. Do you think that there is any chance whatsoever that the Biden administration pivots on their position on crypto and blockchain?
As of right now, we don't have any data that would point to that. My personal theory is that Senator Elizabeth Warren continues to hold significant influence in this administration. She really has been operating in a position of power. A lot of her former employees have been placed in different roles within the White House, and she is the leader of the anti-crypto army. So until Elizabeth Warren is either voted out of office or has less influence in the administration, there's really nothing that is indicating that the Democratic Party in this administration would change its position. In fact, I think it's going to double down. So as you noted, there's been a lot of controversy with President Joe Biden continuing to campaign going into the election in November. And as we've all seen across the news every day over the past several weeks, there's more and more Democrats that are calling for President Biden to step down and to end his campaign. And it's really those people on the far left that hold that extremely, the extreme position of being anti-crypto and wanting to ban cryptocurrencies in this country altogether. So I think it's potential they'll double down on their anti-crypto strategy, given so many moderates are no longer supporting the president for re-election.
And I mean, gosh, that's just around the corner here. And it looks like we may not get an address from Joe Biden if he is, in fact, going to take that route of stepping down and whether it's Vice President Harris that would step into that role. That is a big concern for me. How big of an issue would that be if Vice President Harris did become the nominee?
It's a really good question. The vice president has not made many statements on cryptocurrency. We don't really know where she is today. Yeah. So obviously we're in very unprecedented waters, and it's hard to even understand kind of just what's happening in the election landscape in the U.S. right now. It's absolutely insane. I think we're all concerned as Americans. Point two is the president's position and the current administration's position, which is very much anti-crypto. And, I tell you that they are absolutely doubling down on their position. It was extremely discouraging that everybody walked out of the roundtable this week without even the White House saying we would even potentially reconsider our position. Mm-hmm. They didn't even offer that. As soon as that meeting was over, we had Caroline Crenshaw. Her nomination hearing was that same week. So there was, no conversation about reconsidering her because she is an anti-crypto commissioner at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then the SEC had issued some damaging statements, towards the industry as well. So right after that meeting, you just saw this administration continue to double down and reiterate its extreme anti-crypto position. So we don't necessarily know where Vice President Harris would be, but there is, again, no data points to point that anything would change.
So Perianne, do you think that Joe Biden could maybe come out of left field with something crazy that would potentially sway the crypto vote? Because there's a significant crypto vote, and I'll just throw it out there. Let's say that he says, okay, it's time for Gensler to go. Could that be something that could possibly get him the extension he needs into November, and maybe even give him a little bit of a crypto vote surge in terms of the polls? What are your thoughts on that? I know it's a crazy theory, but it's an idea.
I think it's very possible that President Biden will do something crazy between now and November. I highly doubt that it will be something that is of substance around cryptocurrencies. The conversation did come up in the conversation with Miss Anita Dunn, and there was a acknowledgement that this administration largely just doesn't really fire anybody. Now you have Trump, who has embraced the technology, and anything you do at this point is just going to look reactionary. So there's unfortunately, President Biden is in a position that no matter what he does, I don't think he would be able to win over the crypto voter. Right. I think we've all seen how much this administration wants to kill the industry. So anything at this point, I don't think would come off as sincere.
All right, I'm looking at one of your tweets here. You were disappointed the House didn't override the veto. This is in reference to SAB 121. However, we still have numerous tools to block SAB 121. What are those tools, Perianne?
You've been following this journey very closely with us for a number of years, Paul. This has been a 2-year journey, but essentially there was legislation introduced to repeal or nullify SAB 121. That was the first ever standalone crypto bill to pass both the chambers of Congress and the House and the Senate, and then it was vetoed. And then after the veto, there is a congressionally mandated override vote that took place this week, and it failed. We needed a 2/3 majority. And we didn't come anywhere near that. But there are other efforts underway. So there's been a new bill introduced called the Uniform Treatment of Custodial Assets Act. It does effectively the same thing as the bill that already passed, but it's not what's called a Congressional Review Act. So it's a little less controversial. So that's kind of one strategy. There are other efforts underway. And other tools that we have. So there are a number of institutions that we have talked to who are considering moving forward with providing custody services for digital assets and essentially ignoring the staff accounting bulletin requirements. There's also the possibility that the SEC could rescind these requirements, and they should, and there will be a huge amount of pressure to do so in the coming weeks and months. And then there's also the option of litigation. So industry would have standing to sue to have these laws completely removed from the books. And that's still another tool that is available to the industry.
This is the FDIC chair nominee, former CFTC, coming in. And I want you to listen to this, and we'll get your opinion. Take a look.
Ms. Goldsmith-Romero, I'll start with you. Welcome. Should banks be able to hold the assets of digital asset companies?
Yes, I mean, I'm very familiar with banks holding custody of those assets, and it's another business like any other business.
Should banks be able to provide services to digital asset companies like payment services?
Yeah, I don't think it's the FDIC's role to tell banks what industries or companies they should be providing services to.
Well, first, we are supporting Christy Goldsmith-Romero's nomination to lead the FDIC. We've had the opportunity to work with her as a CFTC commissioner, because that's the role she's currently been in. And she has been very open to discussing digital assets. We've done multiple technical briefings for her and her staff so they could really understand not just the policy and the politics, but how the technology works to make sure they can make more informed decisions as regulators and policymakers. And she's been open to learning. And that's really one of the most important things we can have in public policymakers is not just listening to political talking points that a special interest group gives you, but understanding the technology for yourself and being able to make the best decision for our nation and for her, for the financial institutions. So there's been a lot that's happened at the FDIC. So I don't believe she was chosen to potentially lead the FDIC because of her specific position on crypto. I just think she happens to be a good pick for our industry, but there's a lot of other things at play as to why she is the appropriate person to lead the agency. And this would 100% be a very positive development for our industry.
I was looking at the FIT 21 vote. Obviously, this passed with the House 278 and 136. Kind of just your thoughts about that in general.
So, the natural question is like, when is this going to become law? So the House has done its job. Now it's over to the Senate. And the Senate is doing its job. And there's three different efforts to develop a market structure bill out of the Senate. So those three efforts will have to, at some point in time, come together. And the Senate will have to decide which proposal, which version gets passed. And they're going to have to reconcile them. So we hope that happens as soon as possible, but there are limited days left on the calendar this Congress. So the likelihood of this being done this year, I think, is relatively low, but there is an opportunity to get very strong language. So come at the start of the next Congress with the right person in the Oval Office, this could get done quickly.
Well, speaking of the next Oval Office participant there, we'll talk about a little bit about where maybe Trump could be coming into play. I want to play a clip for you because this is in reference to J.D. Vance, possibly one of the top candidates for the vice presidency, or at least the VP running mate for Donald Trump. Let me play this clip, see what you think. Take a look.
If there's a candidate for worst person, in my view, at least in terms of my substantive disagreements, I'm sure he's like a nice guy, is Gary Gensler. The approach that Gary has taken to regulating blockchain and crypto seems to be almost the exact opposite of what it should be. When I talk to sort of friends who are still in the VC industry, the companies that are most exciting to them, they're doing actual things, those companies very often rely on high utility tokens to do things like verification. If we're not making it possible to do verification, then we're going to make it really hard to challenge the existing incumbents in the space.
The other thing is he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate.
Obviously, Gensler has been looked at as being one of the biggest ones, but you also have a lineup coming in, and this is coming in from Crenshaw's, nomination. I want to play a clip because we'll just go to this clip and then I want to get your opinion on those two things coming together. Take a look.
Come back to you, Commissioner Crenshaw. You dissented from the SEC's approval of Grayscale's spot Bitcoin ETF application, despite the fact that a federal court had struck down the SEC's prior disapproval. Do you continue to disagree with the SEC's approval of Bitcoin ETFs?
When you look at the facts in front of you, and given the significant fraud in the underlying spot markets globally, given the opacity.
Well, the court looked at the facts and they struck it down. I've just been deeply disturbed.
Do you think we have a chance to get out of this? Is there any good path other than a complete shift of the administration?
There's only so much that can be done at the policy level without that support of leadership. So I think, unfortunately, for the United States to maintain its technical preeminence in all advanced technologies, but specifically in cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, I don't believe we will be able to maintain our standing on the world stage with this administration's particular position, and there's no indication that they're even reconsidering that.
This gets back to the whole idea of this represents possibly a threat to national security, which many people have positioned.
100%.
If you look at what's happening within MiCA, we report on what's happening in Tokyo yesterday. We went in and dove in really to kind of the advancements that we're already seeing Japan move into, Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, all vying for the potential of the next generation of Silicon Valley, so to speak. All right, that being said, I want to, because everybody is kind of saying, well, if Gensler does step aside, I mean, that would be a huge, I think, stimulus for what the industry might look at. But at the same time, there's a potential that we could have something even worse than Gensler, and this is the director of the Division of Enforcement over at the SEC. I want to play a clip for you because this is a little crazy. Take a look.
Some of our critics, perhaps a number of you, argue that instead new bespoke rules and regulations are needed for this particular industry. The securities laws are anything but abstract. For us, for me, investor harm is the primary lens through which we view securities regulation. Are investors being hurt within our jurisdiction? If the answer is yes, then I believe we must act, and we must do so with a sense of urgency. The current turmoil in these markets is taking a real toll on everyday Americans. Approximately 46% report that their investments have done worse than they expected. Certainly is due to fraud and other misconduct, are nothing but straight rips, Ponzi schemes, or other types of scams. Stable coins that are neither stable nor coins, but also fraudulent. Consider some of the tweets you read on your social media feeds about what regulators are doing. Again, we're exceeding our authorities, that we're regulating by enforcement, that we're stifling innovation, that we're driving innovation overseas. As long as investors and securities are being harmed now, we will and must act now.
Statements are very clear. The beatings will continue until morale improves. But the Division of Enforcement at the Securities and Exchange Commission does not have a lot of credibility. They have missed all of the biggest scams in the crypto space. Where were they when FTX went down? They were meeting with Sam Bankman-Fried. Why? Mm-hmm. How did they completely miss the largest fraud of one of the largest frauds ever in history? I mean, it's just they've lost a lot of credibility into how they're regulating our community.
John Fetterman here recently, who's been very anti-crypto, falls definitely in the line of the anti-crypto army with Senator Warren, has recently flipped a little bit. We have a clip from him talking about this. Let's play that.
And that the amount of crypto flowing to terrorist groups has super increased since the attack began.
Most of its budget and funds are still going through the traditional channels. And I want to put that clear, because we have to look, on other traditional channels like banking and exchanges and money exchanges and cash and so forth. So let's not forget that.
Should crypto exist? Why should it endure?
So there are good uses of crypto, financial inclusion, and many others.
Kind of for me feels like it's a gimmick.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that this discussion, even if it was relevant a couple of years ago, it doesn't matter anymore because the technology is there.
Well, why didn't Hamas use its American Express card?
Actually, they are using bank accounts and credit cards.
Is there anything we can do to sort of choke that money up a little bit to help Israel so that they don't have the money to buy the weapons and to do the things they do?
And one of the things that was absolutely shocking to me, and I thought this is actually crypto, and I said, really, I'm sure a lot of this was financed through crypto. And they said, actually, no, that was not the primary one. In fact, it was a really minor part of all of that. And my big surprise was it was not crypto at the center.
But do you think that we're seeing more and more of DC coming around to what is happening in the blockchain and crypto industry, such as Fetterman and others that might be in a position right now of flipping?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can see how his positions have changed with just a little bit of education. And that education, that advocacy work that we do at the Digital Chamber, where we're on the ground meeting with staff, meeting with members of Congress, helping them understand how the technology works, is just so critical to successful, sound policy. Because if you don't understand how the technology works, how can you possibly make the best decision for the American people? The beginning of that clip, you had Elizabeth Warren. I loved her, like, super increase. That was very, like, sounded very technically correct. But she has really misled her colleagues in the Senate, and she's been doing it for years, where she's come in with this agenda, this this extreme anti-crypto agenda, where she's telling everyone, oh, it's funding illicit activity, and then if you actually look at the data, it's not true at all. And I mean, just common sense. Like, if you're trying to conceal your flow of funds, if you're doing something wrong or illegal or you're a bad actor, whatever, literally the dumbest thing to do would be to put all of your transactions on a public ledger. It doesn't even make common sense. So it doesn't pass any. So luckily, we do have, a number of resources to help educate our public policymakers, but sometimes our job is really hard.
Yeah, I can see that.
We still have a lot of work to do.
Well, listen, I think you're getting ready to get a big shot in the arm, because there's something that is shifting right now, and that is 41 million members of Gen Z are going to be eligible to vote in 2024. Gen Z, 94% more likely than other generations to trust digital assets during economic uncertainty. This goes into things like collectibles, which would be into the NFT community. All of this really leans in very positively for a younger generation. Do you think there is enough of that generation that is ready and willing to start truly voting their way, especially if they're a single issue voter?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are such incredible numbers. And I know for the people who work in politics, the polls, the numbers, the research, this type of data, it dictates so many important decisions, and really encourage that community to look at these specific data to the crypto space, because they're overwhelmingly positive. There's over 50 million Americans that own cryptocurrency today. 60% of cryptocurrency owners are millennials or Gen Z. And going into this election, 49% of potential voters are millennials or Gen Z. We absolutely have the power to influence the outcomes of the election this year. It's a matter of participation. It's getting the crypto community to participate. And I think we'll see that in key states. Ohio Senate race is one of the most important elections happening this year, in addition to, of course, the election for president. But Sherrod Brown is the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. He's one of the most senior rank and file members of the Democratic Party in the Senate. He's been in office for over 30 years. And he is up against Bernie Moreno, who is running on a pro-crypto agenda. He's also a former member of the Digital Chamber. He started a technology company in the blockchain space, and he actually left that to run for office. In the 2020 election, 4.5 million people voted in that election. According to NPR, there are 2 million cryptocurrency owners in the state of Ohio. And the participation rate, the voter participation rate, was just under 50% in 2020. So if just a small number of those eligible crypto voters show up in Ohio, that could have massive implications, could change the U.S. Senate.
Perianne, it's been great having you on the show, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so good to be here. Appreciate you having me.
You bet. All right, so you guys, if maybe you're tuned in on the audio side of things, make sure and jump over to the YouTube channel and like and subscribe, because this is going to get videos like this, along with other channels out there, in your feed to hopefully get you educated as whether you're a crypto investor or you're just starting to learn a little bit about blockchain and maybe the future of your own family and investments going forward. So make sure and do that. It will help you, I think, at least in understanding all this. If you're not in our Diamond Circle, get in on that. It's our private member group. It has additional content, all sorts of additional resources and tools. Of course, follow me out there on X @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.